Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Fola. In today's video, I'll be drafting the pattern of this dress. I'll start by drafting the upper part. So I have my lines here already. I'm just going to label what I have here. I have the shoulder line, the chest line, the bust points, under bust, and the front waist length. The front length is 16 inches. I placed half of the shoulder measurement on the shoulder line and on the chest line. Then I connected that into a straight line. Next thing I did was to place the neck width, which is 3 inches, and the neck depth is 3 inches as well. This dress is for a small size. If you're on a bigger size, you can just make use of 3.5 inches. Then I connected that with my curve. Then I came down by 1 inch from the shoulder line and I connected it to the neck width to form my shoulder slope. I placed half of my bust pan measurements, that is my nipple to nipple measurements, on the bust point and on the waist length. Then I connected that into a straight line. Then I got the midpoint of what I have there. I marked my midpoint. Then I came in by 0.75 inch from that point. I placed quarter of my bust circumference on the chest line. Then I connected the 3 points together to form my armhole. On the bust pan line, the side facing towards the center front, I placed ½ inch on the waistline and on the under bust line. That is my center front. So I placed ½ inch on the waistline and on the under bust. Then on the second side, the side facing towards the side front, I marked 1.5 inch on the waistline and on the under bust line. You can make use of 2 inches if you're on a bigger size. Then I connected the dots into a straight line. Then with my curve, I connected the bust points to the under bust like so. I did the same thing to the other side also. I connected the bust points to the under bust. Then the next thing I did was to get the midpoint of what I have on the shoulder slope. I divided what I have there into 2. Then I connected it to meet the bust point. The next thing I'm going to do now is to determine how deep I want my yoke to be. You can decide to maintain the chest line or go below the chest line, depending on your preference. But for mine, what I did was to come up by 1 inch from the chest line. And on the armhole, I came down by 5 inch. Then I connected the 2 points together with my curve to form my sweetheart neckline. Then the next thing I'm going to do now is to tighten the neckline. So what I did was to mark ½ inch on both sides of the line. Then I'll connect that to meet the bust point line. I'm going to connect the point like so. I'll do the same thing to the other side. I'll connect that into the bust point line. To avoid shortage, I'm going to replace the dart I have here. I have 1 inch here. So I'm going to extend that line by 1 inch. So I'm just going to connect that back into the line. Then I'm going to redraw my armhole curve like so. The next thing I did was to place quarter of the waist circumference on the waistline. Then I replaced the 2 inches dart intake. I replaced it back there. Then I connected the chest line to meet the waistline. The next thing I did was to place my bust dart. My bust dart is simply the difference between the front waistline and the back waistline. For this, the difference is 2 inches. So what I did was to place 2 inches below the bust point line at the side seam. Then I connected that point to meet my bust point like so. So that is it for the front pattern. I'm going to proceed to cut out. So I'll cut one of the dart leg and I'll stop just at the bust point like so, and I'll cut at the side seam also and slash my bust dart. I won't slash that completely. Then I'll place this over to meet the bust point and I'll cover up with my masking tape. I'm going to place my masking tape on that point to hold it down. Then you'll notice the side is not equal again. Then you're just going to blend the chest line back into the waistline like so. Then I'll continue to cut out. Then you're going to separate the yoke. When you fold the dart you have on the neckline, you'll notice it's not equal. One side is longer than the other. What I'm going to do is to place a piece of paper at that point. I'm going to tape that down with my masking tape. Now I'm going to fold in the dart like so. Then I'm going to replace what is lost there. I'm going to redraw the neckline. And that is it. Then I'll cut that out. So that is all for the front pattern. You can see everything is aligning. Then I'm just going to label the front yoke. Then I'll move on to the back pattern. So I have my lines here already. So the back length here is 14 inches. Remember the front length is 16 inches. So I have 2 inches difference between the front and the back. And this is the center back. All my measurements will be starting from that point. I have the shoulder line, chest line, and the back waistline. I placed half of the shoulder measurements on the shoulder line and on the chest line. Then I connected that into a straight line. Then I placed the neck width, which is 3 inches, and the back neck depth is 1 inch. Then I connected that with my curve. Next thing I did was to come down by 1 inch from the shoulder line, and I connected that to the neck width. Then I got the midpoint of what I have there, and I came in by 0.5 inch. Then on the chest line, I placed quarter of the bust circumference, and I connected the 3 points together to form my armhole. Next thing I did was to place half of my bust pan measurements on the chest line and on the waistline. Then I connected that into a straight line. For my dart, on the waistline, I marked ½ inch on both sides of the bust pan line. Then I connected that to meet the chest line. To avoid zipper bulge, on the waistline, I came in by 1 inch from the center back. Then I connected that point to meet the chest line. So that will be my new waistline. So starting from that point, I'm going to place quarter of my waist circumference, and I'm going to add the 1 inch for that. Then I'll connect that point to meet the chest line. So that is all for the back pattern. It's just as simple as that. Then I'm going to cut out now. I'm going to be adding the zipper allowance and the side seam allowance when cutting out on my fabric. So I'm just going to label this as the back pattern. So I decided to add a yoke to the back pattern also. So what I'm going to do is to place the same measurements I have on the armhole of the front yoke. I'm just going to place the same measurements on the back yoke also. Then you determine how deep you want the back yoke to be also. For mine, what I did was to come down by 6.5 inches. Then I'll connect the point to meet the armhole like so. Then I'm going to cut that out. So that is all for the back pattern. I'm going to move on to the down part of my dress. So from the waist to the length of the skirt is 23 inches. So I'm going to mark that. Then I also mark the hip depth, which is 8 inches for this person. Then I'll connect that into a straight line. So this is my center front. All my measurements will be starting from that point. So on the waistline, I placed 1/4 of the waist circumference. Then I added 1 inch for dart intake. And on the hip line, I placed 1/4 of the hip circumference. And on the hem line, I subtracted 1 inch from what I have on the hip line and I placed it there. Then I connected the points together. I connected my waistline to the hip line and I connected the hip line to meet the hem line. Then I'm just going to blend in the hip line. Now I'm going to take in my darts. So on the waistline, I placed half of the bust part measurements. Then I marked 1/2 inch on both sides. And the length of the darts is 4 inches. Then I'll connect the dots. Then the next thing I did was to add my side seam allowance, which is 1.5 inches. Then I connected the points together. Then I decided to close the darts I have on my skirt. This is totally optional. If you want, you can leave yours like that and sew it on the fabric. But for mine, I'm just going to close my darts. So I'm going to fold it over like so, and I'll close it with my masking tape. So that is all for the drafting of the pattern. Now I'm going to cut this out. So what I have here on the down part is 1 inch. So I'll just leave it like that. That will be serving as the hemming allowance. Then I'm going to cut out the sides. I'm going to be using the same pattern to cut both the front and the back piece. The only difference between the front and the back will be the zipper allowance for the back pattern. We have come to the end of today's tutorial. So in the next video, I'll be showing you the sewing parts of this tutorial. I'll be showing you how to sew this beautiful dress. I hope today's video was helpful to you. Please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.